Welcome everybody to SeraphShares. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the fact that I didn't know what to talk about today. And then I turned that into a metaphor called pep talk about how it's okay to not know sometimes. And I figured the best way for me to come up with something coherent was to just talk about the fact that I was having trouble coming up with something. So, here we go! I've been struggling since Monday to come up with something to talk about today. I had a handful of ideas that kept popping into my head. I was brainstorming them, and I even started writing a few of them, but every single one of them just nothing clicked for me. I'm a perfectionist, and if something just doesn't feel like it's gonna come out well, then I basically just don't do it at all. And it's especially important for SeraphShares, because this is the one moment out of the week that I set aside to give you guys something encouraging and interesting to think about to help grow yourself. So I don't want to come with some half-baked idea for you guys when you deserve more than that. So let's talk a little bit more why I was having trouble coming up with something. There's been a ton of things going on in my head lately, from people that I've been speaking with to things I'm working through in myself. There's just been a lot that I hit my mic. Just been a lot that I have to think about lately. And you'd think that with so much on my mind, coming up with something for SeraphShares would be easy, right? But it actually ends up being the opposite for me. Because when there's so much to think about, it's hard for me to zero in on one thing and really think through it. Because that's what I do. I take one thing that I've been thinking about in the week, and I really analyze it. I dig into it, find out what exactly can I take out of this and share with you guys. There's so much worth talking about right now. I feel like it's just a struggle to pin down a theme for the week, because there's been so much going on all at once. While this could easily turn into a stage for me to talk about being overwhelmed, that's not really the point. And in fact, I don't even really feel overwhelmed. There's just a lot going on. Instead, I want to compare this to something that a lot of people struggle with. I was getting a little frustrated with the fact that I couldn't come up with something to talk about today. Like I said, I had gone through a handful of ideas and wasn't satisfied with any of them. It's interesting because I think that's how a lot of us feel about a number of things in our lives. The modern world throws so many ideas at us, and often with the sheer amount of information that's coming in, it's hard for us to narrow down what really matters to us. Take the example of people not knowing what they want to do with their life, right? This is something that so many people go through, myself included. You're nearing the end of high school, and everyone is just looking to you to decide, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? You want to answer that same question. It's not like you don't want to answer that question, but there's so much pressure. There's so many different paths that you could take, and you just don't know, because there's just so much to think about. What if you choose something and end up not liking it? Or what if you simply may have enjoyed something else more and made a not optimal decision? What if you don't want to miss out on the other things that you would like to pursue as well? No one says, oh, I think I'm going to pursue art and science, because I'd really like to explore both of those fields. Like, you can't explore multiple things either. Like, that's just ridiculous. It's not viable to pursue two or more things at once, or at least as far as like your career goes. Usually it's just not viable to try to do two at once. I remember a couple years ago, I basically had three things I wanted to pursue. I was working at a school. So that was one. I wanted to keep working there and doing that. I wanted to write a book, and I wanted to do GodSquad, right? I had a passion for all three of those things. But if I had tried to pursue all three of those things, I wouldn't have excelled at any of them. And it took me a while to narrow down that GodSquad was my true passion, and when that decision was made, I stopped working at the school and I stopped writing my book. Those were both bittersweet, but it's the decision I made. Now, I'm not saying that you can only ever pursue one thing in life. In fact, The average person changes their career like 10 times in their life or something. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that. What I'm saying is that there's often one thing that you should pursue in the moment, even if you want to pursue multiple different things. We got a little sidetracked here. The original focus of this share, of course, was to explain the fact that it's okay to not know. Uncertainty is something that everybody is going to face, whether it be about their career, their friends, their relationships, or even what they should talk about for SeraphShares. And that's okay. It's okay to be uncertain. You know, you don't need to force yourself into a quick choice when you don't have to. Obviously, there are some situations that are urgent and require a choice to be made, but most of the time, those aren't the kind of decisions we're faced with. No matter the size of the situation at hand, not knowing what to do allows us to really search our hearts and find out what's important to us. When we feel like we're taking in a lot of information, that means there's so much room for us to grow. It might take a while for us to sort through all that and make a decision that's right for the moment, but not knowing is not a crime. The world is trying to tell us that you need to have an opinion on everything, and that you need to have a decision on everything, and that you need to know what you want to do with your life. And that just isn't true. It's just not true. Take politics, for example. Probably the most volatile area of thought to have an opinion, right? You guys want to know what I think about politics? Some of you are like, heck no, please, get me out. Turn it off the stream now. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay, because the answer to that question is that I don't know. You want to know what I think about politics? I have no idea. I'm 21 years old in a world that is vastly different from what it was even 10 years ago. And I have no idea. I have very few opinions on politics because I don't know how to run a country. I don't know what the best way to tax people is. I don't know how to create jobs or solve world hunger. I don't know how to do any of that. And that's okay. That is fine. Right? You know, in a world that is telling us what we need to know, we don't need to know. Now, I'm not saying that it's bad to have an opinion on politics. But what I'm saying is that it's okay to not know. You don't need to pick a side or have an opinion just for the sake of it. It is okay to not know. Take your time, think through what matters to you, and if you find you've come to a conclusion, great. But don't let anyone tell you that you're wrong for not having an opinion. I think that expanded into far more than I had originally planned. But we talked about some good stuff, I think. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It really does mean a lot that some of you look forward to this every week, listening to me babble for 10 minutes. Sometimes I wonder why you look forward to it, but I still appreciate it nonetheless. Even when I have something completely out of left field to talk about, kind of like tonight. But for those of you that keep coming back every week for more SeraphShares, a big thank you to you guys. Really does mean a lot. If you guys learned something this week that was completely different from anything that I just talked about, let us know in the chat or in the comments if you're here on YouTube. And we'll see you back next week for God only knows what on SeraphShares. I'm sure it'll be interesting. I hope, at least, because that's kind of the whole point. But, you know.